Maiden Speech, Dr. Jeevan Sundar.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to rise and give my maiden speech in this House. Like every member across this House, it is the greatest honour, privilege and responsibility of my lifetime to represent my community of Loughborough, Shepshed and the villages. But I rise at this, the most difficult moment for our communities, for our country since the Second World War, when many feel despondency, despair and anger. Now, I know that every member across this House wants our communities to succeed, to contribute to our national success. It is what my community has done before and will do again, with hope and determination. Now, my story does not begin in Loughborough. I was not born there, but it is where my friends, who are now my neighbours, who have made it my home. My story, instead, begins in rural Punjab, 4,000 miles away, where my father was born almost 70 years ago, where his chances of dying before his 5th birthday were 1 in 4. Today, a child born in the same place is around 9 times less likely to die. That is what economic growth means. It means less suffering, it means less misery, it means less death. That's why I became an economist, to build prosperity and to lessen misery. I learnt my trade in the Treasury, and I then went to work in Somaliland, one of the poorest nations on earth, where I helped write their economic policy, their budget and their national development plan. But it's also where I saw the horrors of climate change lead to drought, hunger and death. But it is where I learned that even in the darkest of hours and the most difficult of moments, we can build prosperity. And now I stand here as the elected Member of Parliament for my community. And it says something remarkable about our nation, that the fact that I, as the son of immigrants, am standing here is in and of itself unremarkable. It speaks to our common culture, a culture forged of different backgrounds, a culture that not only rejects the violence we saw over the summer, but completely rejects its reasoning too. My election represents an historic first for my community. I am a member of an underrepresented minority. I am, of course, the first Member of Parliament elected by the men and women of Loughborough that has a beard. And to the organisers of the Beard of the Year competition, call me. Luckily for me, my dad is not eligible for that particular competition. And I know that the Right Honourable Member for Islington North has won the award several times. I hope he doesn't mind me winning the prize this time, as long as I let him win the argument. My predecessor in this place, Jane Hunt, was not a contender for this award, but no one can doubt her commitment to Team Loughborough, and every single member across this House and across my community wishes her the very best, especially as she has recovered from cancer. Her predecessor, the Baroness Morgan, has talents that are well known both in this and the other place. And before her, my good friend and mentor, Andy Reid. For those members who know Andy, they know that he is still a leading figure of sports policy. And they will also know that Andy is the nicest man in British politics. It is his character that I hope to live up to in this place. But I do rise, Madam Chair, at what is the most difficult time for our communities and our nation since 1945. Our communities are in crisis. Wages in my constituency, £10,000 lower than had we grown at New Labour rates. The divides caused by deindustrialisation have widened from cracks into chasms. Young men who used to leave school and get good jobs are now 20% less likely to get any job. And in our most deprived neighbourhoods, life expectancy falling before the pandemic. But more than any fact, more than any figure, the despair, the despondency, the anger. And across or beyond our shores, war in Europe once more, democracy in danger. And most seriously of all, a planet that is burning. For my community, the hottest summer we have ever known, followed by the worst flooding we have ever seen that destroyed homes. Destruction the Prime Minister and I saw when we visited the homes of Ian and Alan. No one should wake up in the morning to find their home destroyed by flooding, and that will only become more common in the years ahead. What we do in the next decade will determine the fate of our communities, democracy, and our planet. We will either rise to this moment, build prosperity for all, protect democracy, and stop emitting carbon, or everything we hold dear will crumble and fall. Now, previous generations have shown us that we can rise to our moment, to this, a moment that threatens us. Our country stood alone against fascism in Europe and won. I think today of my constituent, David Williams, 104 years old, who flew Spitfires in the war. As that generation rose to their moment, so can we. And it is my community who has shown me that we can. When the waters came and the floods rose, my constituents, Kaz and Carl, did not stop and pause to think if they could help, but only how they could help. They organised collections, they provided refuge, they looked after perfect strangers, not asking if, but how. It is their spirit that I carry into this place, not asking if, but how. How can we build prosperity and protect our planet from burning? We can do so, Madam Chair, by investing in our green transition. That creates good jobs and gets wages rising for the people and places left behind when the factories closed. That is what we can achieve, and we are seeing it work already in the United States. In my community has world-leading hydrogen research and industry. Green hydrogen we need for fertilizer and to keep our trucks moving. It is not a coincidence that I have chosen to speak in this debate with Treasury ministers on the front bench, and I say to them, get out the checkbook. They're very excited by that, because I will be asking for money from both the National Wealth Fund and GB Energy. But this is about more than cash. It is about rebuilding hope and prosperity as a previous generation rose to their moment. In the midst of the most destructive war in the history of humankind, an economist wrote a report that still defines our nation. He wrote, "Freedom from want cannot be forced upon a democracy. It cannot be given to them. It must be won by them." And it was won by them. They built prosperity for all, with good jobs across our country, education for all, housing for all, healthcare for all. As that generation rose to their moment, so will we, by building prosperity, protecting our planet, and ending despair and despondency. As previous generations rose to their moment, so we will too, with the hope and determination that defines our communities, that defines our country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Indeed, very strong maiden speech without a script in hand.